and welcome back to Just Jocelyn. And my guest is Karen Testerman. Welcome back, Karen.
Thank you.
We're talking about election validation. And, we got a little heated there at the beginning. Well, I did, because I get excited and I get very, very passionate is the word. And we have to stop labeling people for being angry and this. Passionate, because as Karen stated and has so convincingly shown us here, and we're going to continue with this, we have laws that are in complete opposition to another law. We're going back and forth, and this makes absolutely your mind just spin. And as voters and citizens of the state of New Hampshire, there should be no shenanigans going on. And I'm being extremely polite about that. We are talking out and out fraud. We are talking numbers of items that are interfering with our inalienable rights, with our Bill of Rights to vote and vote for who we want. When we have a Secretary of State that's sitting in his office, well, I didn't receive the letter that says you don't allow undeclared people to vote in your primary. We're being very clear about this. When it's very obvious that in our own rules and regulations, both Democrat and Republican, as far as we can tell, it doesn't say that they can. In fact, Karen had just read the part. Just to recap, do you want to read the part where it says between those two dates that you can the change of registration?
The change of registration.
Right.
So no person who is already registered to vote, whether his party membership has been previously registered or not, shall affiliate with a party or disaffiliate from a party between the first Wednesday in June and the day before the state primary election. So you could theoretically from this, and we'd have to go further investigate these RSAs, which you can do by going to Gen Court, and then you go over to where, if you go to Gen Court on your search engine, it'll bring you to the legislators page. And then if you go in, there's across the top, it says laws and rules.
Yep.
When that drop down comes down, you can go by title, and then you can go down and look for the elections, which is way down at the bottom in the 600s. So when you get down there, you can start reading through all of the election laws if you want to take the time to really do the investigation,
right,
which you should really go in and especially look at some of these and then start looking at some of the ones that surround it.
Right.
And make sure
that one you just read was 654:34, change of registration.
Right. So, the whole thing is that we're changing our registration in our primary, but yet if you go to 659:14, it says very clearly that the party has to give permission for an undeclared voter to vote in their primary.
Right.
Right.
And that has, upon investigation and research, has not been done. There is no such letter.
The practice has been all along that an undeclared, as long as I've been in the state of New Hampshire, the practice has always been that on primary day, you could, if you were registered as an undeclared, you could go pull in either ballot. Mm-hmm. And then on your way out, you could designate yourself as an undeclared. And they used to have to put it in an actual notebook. Whether they're still keeping the notebook or not, I don't know.
I believe they are. I know they are in my town.
Yeah, some towns they are and some towns they're not. But it begs the question of who's checking up on this and why hasn't it been, so the funny thing is this isn't the first time this particular RSA has been investigated.
Right.
But it's the first time that anybody actually noticed that it said permits, gives permission. It's been glossed over because our practice has been always that it's been allowed. So when you read it, you're reading it with that intent.
Correct.
Which is something that we have to be a little bit wary of when we're reading other things. I mean, and it's a common mistake. It's not to be. I was talking to somebody, a former legislator who used to sit on the election law committee, and she said, we discussed this, but I never saw this.
Wow.
You know, so
many eyes.
Right. Many eyes have to look at it. And it's only because this whole discussion came up about whether or not the notification was sent to the Secretary of State in the proper form. Only because that question was arose, and there were many eyes looking at it, right? That somebody said, hey, wait a minute, I just saw this.
Wow. What I find interesting is the affidavit part. And
that's from Black's Law's dictionary.
Correct. And it's a statement or declaration reduced to writing, sworn to or affirmed before an officer with authority to administer an oath or affirmation. So it says to me, so if we've got butterfingers on our voting applications and the moderators are not ensuring that there isn't an affidavit, they removed it, but they're not even going so far as to see, is this envelope legit? Is this signature actually who they say they are? Because it does say that the moderator shall sort and count the votes. It also says that they need to make sure 100% that absentee ballot is signed and from notarized, which it isn't, and they should never open the envelope if there's any question. But yet the envelopes are being opened, and may I say at an incorrect time, and they're being envelope is separated from the ballot. The ballot is put through the machine, so now there is no way that it can ever be questioned because the name on the ballot or lack of name and the affidavit on the ballot does not match the envelope.
Well, so here's the bigger problem, though. This is issued by the Secretary of State. Okay? The Secretary of State's office is responsible for printing all of the documents and the information that the moderators and the people who keep the checklists and the people who are working the election at the time of the election, the election tables, right? They're being instructed on what they're supposed to be doing. Well, the fact that this is now being issued by your clerk of your town or your city, and they think that they're following the instructions that come down from on high. Yeah. Right? And so when it comes down from on high, it says, here's your application. When you fill out the application, you state whatever, I can't remember even what you state on it, but you may actually say, I'm getting it because I'm going to be out of town, or I'm getting it
when you apply for that absentee ballot. Yep.
I don't know if it includes all of the expansion that the legislature did a few years ago, but then when the absentee ballot is issued to you, it should have that form that either the justice of the peace, a notary public, a selectman, or a city councilor, the town clerk or the city clerk, or the moderator, a place for them to sign to verify that you are the one who got this ballot. When you got the ballot, that it was not filled in for you.
Correct.
That it was empty. And they watched you go over and mark it. They didn't watch what you were marking, but they watched you mark it.
Fill in a blank form.
They verified that you were the person, that you had an identification of some sort that convinced them that you were Jocelyn Davis, or that I am Karen Testerman, and that they can now sign that they know that this is who you were. They're a witness that you did all of this, and they watched you not only sign it, but put it into the outer envelope, or the inner envelope.
Right.
And then their signature should be on it as well.
There's nothing.
But it's not even big enough to be able to do that. At minimum, it should be an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, right? It may be tiny print, but it should
Still
be
needs
at
to be
least
there.
that. And it's not.
So I've been told by a number of town clerks that they are not allowed to ask for an ID for absentee ballots, or in some states, mail-in ballots. And I have a problem with that.
I do too.
A huge problem with that. Just based on you don't know who you're sending it to. You're obviously not double checking the name, goes to the address that they haven't moved, whatever. But the bigger problem for me is here I am as a ballot clerk demanding people in front of me who've been verified as they came in, that are being verified on the list, have to still give me their voter ID, which I'm perfectly fine with. But how come absentee ballot people do not have to show any form of ID? And on top of it, we've got the problem of no notary, no affidavit, no nothing. So we don't know who any of these people are.
I've got another one, though.
Oh, God. My head's going to explode.
Are you ready for this one?
Okay.
My city clerk tells me that, in fact, you can register to vote by mail.
What?
How? I know. That one totally blew me away. When I registered in the state of New Hampshire the first time to vote in the state, I went to my town hall. I had to produce either my birth certificate, a passport, or a government issued ID, my driver's license, and preferably a New Hampshire driver's license, or my, in my case, it was military ID, right? That has my picture on it. That verifies that I am who I am. Well, that particular issue has been very
glossed over?
glossed over.
Plus,
and so
we
you
had
can,
to bring
so how
a
do
bill.
Yes, you
we had
also
to bring a bill with the address on it.
Right, you had to have some form that said either your something that had your name on it, that had the address that you're claiming that that you're an inhabitant of, although they've muddied that with domicile and resident, right? But the whole thing is that you had to verify that the address that you were using to register to vote was your address. Now, additionally, and this is, thank you, Marilyn Todd, thank you, Brenda Town, thank you, Al Brandino, all of these different people who have been investigating the HAVA law, the Help America Vote Act law, which says that when a change of address form has been completed and sent to the post office, the U.S. Postal Service, that then those lists do come out, and the state can get them from the post office. Anybody can get them, actually, and because it's part of the public record, then you can now use that, and you're supposed to use that, according to even our New Hampshire RSAs, that you're supposed to now take that name and remove it from the voter list.
Yep.
Okay, so I asked Brenda Town, because she's been working on this, for the list for my community, right? She sends it to me. I find out what wards are where and all that, and I send it off to my clerks. Now, the Secretary of State's already sent them a letter back in June or July that this was required, right? So I sent it off because there are 64,000 names that are still on a spot check on the voter rolls in New Hampshire.
64,000.
64,000. And so different people, just different residents have been saying, hey, I want to get in touch with my town election personnel, and I want to make sure that they're doing this and that they're cleaning up our rolls. So, because this is also an avenue for vote fraud to occur. So, one of my moderators wrote back and said, well, this is a very tedious job, and it takes time for it to get done. Now, the last time I checked, you could have it all on an Excel spreadsheet, and if I'm not mistaken, this is something that Hollis has been going through, and Mr.
Fulcino, yes.
Fulcino has been working diligently, and he said they offered to help them set up the Excel spreadsheet and so forth. And when I was explaining this to one of my former state reps, she said, it's easy. All you do is you take the Excel spreadsheet, you look up the name, you go delete. Look up the name, delete. She said it shouldn't take them more than 2 hours to do 100 and 150 names. But yet my moderator told me
it's tedious and
tedious and time consuming. Yeah. And I'm only asking him at the end of September to do this, right? He's had the notification since June.
Correct. So here we go again, reminiscent of, kick the can down the road and then whine when you don't have enough time, but yet that's your job. So it removes people that have passed, have died. It removes people that have moved out of town. It cleans up the voter rolls. It's very, very important that we have clean voter roll lists,
right,
and not excess people.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's finish up with, so this all came about because of the letter that was not sent by the Republican chairman
right,
to the Secretary of State. So Chris Ager did not send it to Scanlon, Mr. Scanlon, Dave Scanlon.
Correct.
So
he had a meeting instead.
They had a meeting instead.
He didn't follow, in other words, he did not follow the RSA.
And send the letter.
And
or
send the letter. Because it
permission.
says it's supposed to be a written notification, right?
Not a
And Mr.
chat.
Scanlon is quite honest and right in saying, well, I haven't received a letter, so I can't.
I can't. Well, here's my
enforce
other
it.
question. So I'm hearing, let me get into this little part here.
Oh, the one
that
back
I gave
here?
You.
Yeah.
What did I do with that?
This one. This one?
Yes. Trying to find that.
Well, you can take mine.
Can I borrow yours? Okay.
Oh, yeah, please do.
So a good friend of ours who is a legislator took the bull by the horns, because she does, and said to the chairman, no one seems to care. No one seems to notice that these primaries are not elections, which is actually from the Granite Crock, and so not subject to election laws. You brought this up to me. So she went right to the horse's mouth and went to the chairperson and said, your job is to send a letter, a notification giving permission, or not giving permission, in this case, for undeclareds to change their party affiliation on the day of the primary. He didn't do it, so she pushed him to do it. Allegedly he did it, but here's the rub for me. Yes, let me read this to her. I spoke to Chris yesterday and last night a few times. The resolution was submitted to the Secretary of State yesterday, meaning Wednesday. I told him we need an official response from the state, which I know is going to be something like, so the Secretary of State's going to say it violates something, which it doesn't. Working on this, I believe this is important. We need to close the primaries for both parties in the state of New Hampshire. This is extremely important. This is a battle that needs to go today.
But the other side of it is,
Yeah.
has either party ever submitted a letter to the Secretary of State
Apparently not.
stating that they give permission for an undeclared to vote in their primary? And as far as the Republicans are concerned, the New Hampshire Grand Old Party, GOP, that letter doesn't exist as far as the Secretary of State is concerned, because he's notified others through other correspondence that he cannot find one.
Right. Which means he's been allowing undeclared
Not just
voters.
him, but over the years,
Right.
the previous Secretary of State, this has been a common practice. It's in violation of the state law. Now what do we do? Who is responsible for this? And are they going to correct it before the next primary?
Well, they should, or we should not have a next primary or a next election, because it seems to me that this unelected person by us, but elected by the legislature, as you corrected me, is making decisions for private parties, which directly affects you and me. And
Right.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't have that authority.
Well-
and we've now discovered them with their pants down.
Right. Well, and the other part of it being too that this isn't the only area. We've now uncovered the absentee ballot.
Correct.
We've also uncovered the fact that for the absentee ballot, there should be an affidavit for your reason for not being there
And your signature.
and your signature.
Well, try and go to court and not have your affidavit notarized and sanitized and itemized, whatever I's you want to put on it. So why is this any less? Because they're actually mocking us. They are mocking the whole voting procedures. They're making Mickeys, and idiots out of us. Oh, well, I'm just going to allow. And this is not picking on undeclareds, but you want to vote in a primary, you better be in that party and not the day before, the day after, because that really comes across as some kind of dirty stuff that you're pulling.
Right. Well, and so here's the other part of this. You did mention that this legislator actually got on board and dogged him a little bit. Mm-hmm. But she wasn't the only one.
Correct.
She wasn't. So
hundreds of emails were received.
Hundreds of emails, phone calls, and texts were received.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up.
That he finally decided that maybe he ought to, because up until that time, despite the fact that I had written him several letters, that it was an issue at the very beginning of the year.
And it was voted on at the beginning of the year.
Yes, it was voted on. But I also, when this started to come about, because another legislator contacted me and said, my constituents are complaining about this. What can we do? Will you write a letter to Chris Agert and ask him to please submit the letter and clarify this? And he pushed back, and he pushed back, and he pushed back until hundreds of phone calls, emails, and texts arrived.
Yep.
So you, the people, have power, but you have to be involved. It's the individual who must pick up the torch at that point and carry it forward, because one person doesn't make near as much noise
as 1,000.
Hundreds or thousands.
And we need it to be thousands, because this is happening in every aspect of our world. This is just the voting, and I don't mean just as to put it down, because this is huge. But when someone else is taking away your decision making as to who you want for a president, who you want for a vice president, who you want for a governor, who you want for selectmen, counselor,
or dog catcher.
Well, school boards are a big
or
one.
library trustee.
Don't even get me started
so,
on
that
one.
These are all important places. And the other thing is that we get this, those town offices, those are nonpartisan. They're all nonpartisan, folks. Let's face it.
Correct.
Whatever party you're voting for, they're taking forward their basic principles, yes, and maybe some of their policies, but in the end, they're representing everyone.
So that I can attest that that's not happening. That our federal representatives in this state are Democrats, and they do not represent me, and I don't know anybody in the Republican Party that they even come this close to even having a conversation with us. It's their way or the highway, and it probably happens the same way on the other side, but I don't think quite as much, but let's call it for what it is. No matter what your party is and you're elected, you're supposed to represent all of us, and that is not happening. We have private beliefs and desires going forward, and basically to heck with us. We pay the salaries.
But the bottom line is that we've got a state constitution, which is the law of the land.
Correct.
And we have common law, which is that we, the people, designed and had this contract with the government.
Correct.
Which
State
is
government.
our legislators, our judges, and our executives. Right? Those three people make up the government for us. We tell them what they are allowed to do.
Correct.
And they are supposed to protect our rights as God-given rights. And unless we, the people, have given them permission to make a law that changes, they're not really supposed to do that. They're not supposed to be willy-nilly coming up with
Correct.
anything in the world.
Just like
they're supposed to be hearing the concerns of the people in their remonstrances and their grievances.
Right, redress of grievance, which they've chosen to, well, it's not convenient.
It's fallen out of favor.
It's fallen out of favor. Too bad. Guess what? You're going to fall out of something. It's going to be out of our favor. You're going to fall out of office. So I want to thank you so much for bringing this forward. This is so important that people are looking to find out why we have no voice. What has gone wrong? Here's a basic one, the primary. You have no say because the Secretary of State has decided, secretaries of states have decided that they get to make the rules and, you know, to heck with what the fallout is.
Well, they should at least be instructing our election officials what they're supposed to be doing, what the process is, and they should be making sure that they are complying with the RSAs that they throw into our faces whenever they don't want to do something that we're asking them to do that is really legitimate for them to do, right?
Yeah. So. Awesome. Well, thank you, Karen. I can't wait to have you back on our next blazing event that comes up. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn.
We'll see you next time. We'll put up the different numbers and the pages for you so you can look them up yourself, that it really is legit. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.